Welcome to My Therapist is Out. Each episode, we talk with a therapist from Open Space Therapy Collective or LGBT community members about mental health and building community. I'm your host, Renae Johnson, licensed therapist and founder of Open Space Therapy Collective, where we are your hub for queer and trans mental health care. As we dive into today's topic, please keep in mind that this is a mental health podcast. We will talk about sensitive and difficult issues that are not appropriate for all audiences. Please take care while listening. Welcome back to My Therapist is Out. It is a couple weeks into January. It's the day after the inauguration that we're recording this, so everything is pretty intense and raw. Before we dive in today, I do want to remind people or let you know, if you haven't heard already, we do have a support group starting February 13th that is specifically focused on politics and queer mental health and how to take care of yourself. And so that is going to be led by two of our therapists, Ernesto Martinez and Jenny Nigro. They're amazing. It'll be second Thursdays of every month. It's open to anybody in the States, $25, so very accessible, trying to give an access point for support. Because this year's going to be a lot.
Next 4 years, it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, this 4 years is going to be a lot. And on that note, we are talking about politics and mental health and how to take care of yourself and everything that's happening. And we have our clinical director, Kristen Crowe, with us. Good to see you. Thanks for being down to have this conversation today.
Always down to burn stuff down.
Yeah. It's been 24 hours. How are you feeling?
I'm gonna be honest, I took a social media break for a good chunk of yesterday and I'm diving back in today and it's just a shit show.
It's a shit show. Yeah.
I was gonna try and not curse, but I can't. It's a shit show.
Yeah, same. I took the day off of media and I was like, I'm just going to look at the end of the day to get the recap. I'm like vacillating between full rage and just like very, very sad and tearful.
Yeah, that sounds, actually, I haven't reached the tear part. I'm just in full rage.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yay.
Yeah. So let's set the stage a little bit since this will come out in a little more than 2 weeks. It'll probably be early February. The inauguration just happened. Meta announced last week that hate speech is fine, and misinformation is fine. Trump just pardoned all the January 6ers, including all the people that murdered the staff in the White House. Elon Musk just did the Hail Hitler sign on the inauguration stage. Biden just pardoned all of his family. So this isn't like boo the right or the left. They're all fucked.
This is a what the fuck.
Yeah. And we are about to find out what's going to happen for queer rights, for women's rights, for people of color rights, and Trump has made a bunch of different claims about what he's going to do. So it's, for going off of his last term, he said a lot but didn't do a lot, and it's already seeming like he's gung-ho to do everything that he's saying. Kristen, what are your thoughts, add-ons? What am I missing?
Yeah, I think like we said, that we are recording this the day after this is happening, and we've seen all the executive orders that he's already signed, and making space for, like, if this isn't coming out from 2 weeks from now, a lot is going to change. So just keeping that in mind, that if you're listening, that we have 2 weeks less of information.
Yeah. What do you know about which queer, especially trans stuff, is up on the chopping block, or that is up to be taken back, repealed, changed, put in place?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is something that my friend texted me about the like there are only two genders that are recognized. So that's gonna be a man. I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to talk about this in a way that's gonna sound productive, other than uh, I know that if we're looking at that, then there are healthcare things. There is access to um, gender affirming care in general. There is, sorry, we're talking specifically about queer stuff, right? We're not gonna, I'm not
Trans
gonna,
stuff too. All of
okay.
it. All of it.
Well, I mean, like anything under that umbrella, my brain was gonna go like, and now we're talking about abortion rights, which is not the same. Um,
Yeah, it's not
and
not the
also
same.
there, it's not the same.
So we know that the two genders are a thing, and that they are going to talking about limiting the markers on passports, which would trickle down to state IDs and put into question birth certificates and being able to update your gender marker from what you're assigned at birth to what you actually are.
Yes.
Um, Abortion rights is very real, especially as people are on different medications and different levels of surgery and different just ability to have or carry a baby if they want to. Um, this is I will say we are not medical providers, so we're not going to get into the details of what this stuff is or isn't. We're just talking about rights and care. Um, the same sex marriage is starting to
Yep.
be challenged. And just general human rights to begin with. So I think those are the big ones that are being talked about and actively challenged. And then gender affirming care as a whole, especially for people under 18. Um,
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Ban in the military.
right, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think the fact that we are exacerbated 5 seconds in, it really is reflective about how everybody's feeling right now. Um, what are let's go into political fatigue and burnout because I mean I think you and I are both there. Uh, what are in coming out of Trump's first round, Biden's been all over the place, uh, and now we're coming into a second round of Trump. What does political fatigue, and burnout look like? What are some things that people can look at and notice that that's what's happening?
um, I mean, I can name what it looks like for me and see if that resonates with any folks. For me, it turns into like a sense of overwhelm and hopelessness. Like I'm only one person. How am I going to change like any of this stuff? How do you hold space for any of this? Um, I also tend to like yesterday was an intentional break and like I did that on purpose. And there's the idea of like I'm just not going to engage with any of it. Like I know all of it's bad, um, which like I understand that I have some privilege to be able to do that, and knowing that like it is coming back at some point. So, but the ability to turn it off for a minute or not even a choice actually a lot of times sometimes it just happens and my brain's like we are on overwhelm and it's not going to turn back on.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then there's always the doom scrolling sense of fear and like the world's going to hell in a handbasket kind of vibe.
Yeah. I think like the compulsiveness that you're
Mm-hmm.
mentioning, like with the doom scrolling and I can't look away,
Mm-hmm.
um, everything is so hopeless, I need to know all of the threats that are coming, is a line that we're all really going to have to pay attention to, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
being informed of what's happening and inundating yourself with what's happening are two different things.
Yep.
And so, in a place where you are doom scrolling about politics stuff, if you're watching everything, if you're reading everything for a long time daily, that's probably not good for you and it's going to fry your nervous system out.
Absolutely.
And we'll get into a little bit more of like what to do. But in thinking about like fatigue and burnout, what are some of the somatic symptoms? What are some things that you'll notice in your body? Because I think sometimes we notice those first, or our body will say stop before our brain can say stop.
Sleep disruption.
Mm-hmm.
Like wanting to sleep all the time or not being able to sleep, not being able to sleep through the night. Feeling really like sluggish and heavy is one. And conversely, feeling very like raw nerve. Everything hurts. Everything's really sensitive. Um, Being really tired, being really irritable at this point also feels, or touchy,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. Um, and a lot of tension and tightness would also be something like, and I would like folks who have chronic pain, if you're feeling extra flare uppy right now, would also track
Mm-hmm.
appropriately.
Mm-hmm. I know I get a lot of like stomach stuff happening
Mm,
and like allergy stuff happening. Like I'll be more itchy, my skin will be more sensitive, like I'll break out more, I'll have more acid reflux. My body will be more swollen, and I'll be like, "Oh my God, I'm gaining so much weight. What's happening? I'm eating the same." But it's just my body being very on alert and hyper vigilant
mm-hmm.
because of all of the stress that's
Yep.
happening.
Funny allergies. I'm like, LA wildfires. I haven't noticed anything different, but that's because the air quality is trash here right now.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. That's a good point.
Yeah,
Thanks.
which also is important to know is like there's a difference between like your your chronic illnesses, the way that your body is wired, and like the things that you're sensitive to, and the effects that this type of fatigue and burnout can have. I really want to be clear in saying, because I think this gets missed a lot, we are not saying your political burnout means that that's why you have this chronic illness. That is not at all the
No.
same. I think that really gets the messaging about that really gets fucked up in mental health spaces.
Yeah.
We will say that it might be exacerbated, like your symptoms may increase because that's where your body is sensitive and that's where your body expresses. It's not going to be the cause of why you have this chronic illness. Those are different things.
Absolutely. No causation. Possibly some correlation.
Sure. What? So, noting those things, I think, difficulty concentrating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, everybody just listen to us, have a hard time forming a thought.
We.
Um, yeah. Not being able to think through things, feeling stuck. Um, it's a lot. Those really survival responses. And also, you mentioned hopelessness stuff earlier. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when it comes to some of these symptoms, the thought is, well, my sleep is disrupted, it's stressful, like that's just what it is. And like that's the hopelessness seeping into the burnout symptom. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a narrative that we want to challenge.
Exactly.
So as we move into strategies to help take care of yourself as this is going to happen, because we are all going to be political fatigue and burnout throughout the next 4 years if we're not already. Hopefully, there's reprieves, but TBD. How do we take care of ourselves? How do we challenge some of that hopelessness? What are strategies that people can implement so they can be involved, so they can be informed instead of overwhelmed, so they can be participating in activism and community instead of being frozen. What are ways to for people to approach that?
Well, I mean, you and I both intentionally really limited our consumption of it yesterday, right? And just making sure that you are not spending 6 hours scrolling your social media of choice or the news of choice, watching for constant updates. That sends your nervous system into overdrive. Um, I've been telling, I feel like, a chunk of my clients and all of our associates, it's time to like up your feel good shit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are the things that you can do that do help you recuperate and recover? Like, who is your community? What are the hobbies that you have that feel safe and comforting? Um, and ways to like turn your brain off from that space so you can come back to the things that are important. Um, yeah, what are the coping tools that you have been utilizing so far, and how can we strengthen them so they continue to serve you?
Yeah. Yeah, I had several friends separately yesterday decide to go to the spa. Uh, Um, and partly it's like that self-care thing or that feel-good stuff. It's a beautiful nervous system regulator. It's intentional time away. You can't have your phone on you. It's very, it takes a sensories way down.
Mm-hmm.
And so intentionally taking time to build that in more regularly is vitally important. And it's not the like goop self-care shit. It's the nervous system regulation stuff.
Yes.
And, you know, even going into it, like going back to limiting social media news consumption, like thinking about it backwards, like how much time do you need to be informed? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is it half an hour a week? Is it 10 minutes a day? Like, we don't need to know every little thing that's going on. We just need the summary and we need people to connect to. So, okay, I'm going to spend 15 minutes at the end of each day, at the beginning of the day, to figure out what's happening so I'm aware. And don't sit in that alone. Have your people to be like, okay, what are we doing about this? What are we talking about? Where are we putting this energy? And
Mm-hmm.
not just, I think something that can happen is just nervous system screaming at each other and being in like this echo chamber of freaking out. Which there is a time and a place for that. Don't get me wrong, venting is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
And it can't be the only thing. Otherwise, you're
No.
in a scary loop that's not going to help
Yeah.
you move forward.
Yeah. The feedback loops are not always helpful.
What are some of your go-to grounding exercises?
Well, anybody who's heard me talk on here knows that dancing is mine. I will throw on some music and I will just be ridiculous and shake everything out and like it, um, because that is things get stuck in my body personally, and if I have a way to get rid of it, then that is my favorite way. Um, that is my favorite way. That is what I have been doing a lot of lately because it helps. Going to the gym also helps me, and just sweating and being like, I can physically exert something, and all of the stress can go into this weight that I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
try not to throw at the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, I find it really entertaining when this stuff comes up because we have the almost the exact opposite somatic needs.
Yes, we do.
Um, because I'll be like, okay, Kristen said this was helpful, and so I'll go try and do what they suggested. And within like 5 minutes, my body is like, this is bad. We are not doing this. This is the opposite. This makes it worse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So really finding the thing that works for your nervous system, right? Like I have extra pillow. I have 6 pillows on my bed right now and 4 different blankets. I'm wearing the biggest, comfiest sweaters of all times. I'm like cuddled and warm and like tucked in and quiet and just feeling like I'm a little cocooned cave. Um, our recording session gave me the thumbs up.
It likes
Um,
that for you.
yeah, but that makes my whole system really like calm down, and I can start breathing and start like kind of recentering and coming back.
Yeah, and I see how that totally makes sense for some people, and my brain would be screaming at me. And that is also why Renae and I have incredibly different neurodivergence. So, yeah, so I totally agree. Like knowing what really works for you, and if you don't know, like experiment, try a bunch of things, and if something doesn't work for you, don't do it.
Hmm.
Right? Like,
Hmm.
and just listen to that little voice that you shut down all the time when it's like, I really just want to color. I don't know where that came from, but okay, right? Like, do whatever that is.
Hmm.
Cuddle your pets. Do whatever.
Yeah. You, like, don't make this type of nervous system regulation, um, sensory stuff more complicated than it needs to be. Like, this is baseline. We are taking care of like that very the oldest part of our brain, the oldest part of our development, that little toddler self that is like overstimulated. Like, what does that self need?
Yeah.
And then we can get into the other things.
And also, I guess the caveat to that is like, also don't, if one thing that usually works isn't working, be okay with shifting and not berating yourself like, why isn't this working?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just because I've seen some of that lately and I'm like, oh, that's probably worth noting. Sometimes you just
Yeah.
need something different. That's okay too.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because there are things that won't work that typically work, right? Because we're
Mm-hmm.
in a different place. Like, this is the threat is real,
Yes.
right? Like, this isn't when we're talking about anxiety or rumination or some of these things that you'll talk about in therapy, these um, maladaptive narratives. That's not what this is. Like, what's happening in the current political environment and the effects that it has on everybody, but especially like queer and BIPOC communities and women is substantial, and that threat is real. And so there's not going to be always the things that work when you're doing well and the world is safer that will work now because you're in a different place.
Yeah.
What about community activism as self-care? We're regulated. You've gone to the gym. I've crawled out of bed. What do we do next?
We're gonna, I mean, like, volunteer. Go donate time. Go donate funds. Go donate goods. Like, spaces. If that's something that you have access to, go protest. Go. Like, um, I was trying to find, was on my phone for a second looking for this really beautiful chart that I'd seen that I can't remember, which is super typical for my brain. But it talks about like all the different kinds of ways that you can engage in this, and knowing that you don't have to like take up every lane and space. But like some people are visionaries, and some people are healers, and some people are space creators, and so like knowing what is available for your capacity, and like also what feels good for you and what leads into your own affinities and like resources is a really useful way to stay focused and not burn out trying to do all the things, especially if those things are not within your wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, pick one thing, maybe two, max.
Yeah.
That came up a lot this past summer with all the pro-Palestine stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is a lot of people were like, well, I'm not doing enough. There's so much more to do. I feel really guilty because I like needed to like go spend time at the beach or go take a nap or go do this thing. And one of the beautiful things is you're not doing this alone,
No.
right? And I think we're following the fires. We just saw LA say, well, if none of the people with money are really going to step up, we are going to step up together. And So much so that there was nowhere to volunteer or donate to because
Mm-mm.
everybody was beyond capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's I wish I could remember who was the original person who said this. So apologies that I don't have the quote or source offhand. I'm sure somebody will tell us. Um, but if you think about activism like a choir, and a choir can sing one note forever because everybody in the choir can drop out to take a breath and come back in and do it at different times.
Mm-hmm.
And activism is the same way. Like what you are able to do and what I'm able to do and when we're able to do it and what the hundreds and thousands of other people in our activism community can do varies dramatically and drastically. And everybody has different skill sets and passions and abilities and times that they can show up. And as long as we're all engaged, it will move forward.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I really wish I remember who said that. But
I'm sure someone will DM it to you. I'll put it in the show notes.
what about navigating these conversations with family, with colleagues who don't get it? Who say, well, you live in California, you'll be fine.
I'm literally the worst person to ask about this because I am so blunt and will just go off on anybody. I don't care who they
Great.
are.
Talk about how you do it.
um, yeah. If they are some loved ones, like, yeah, like, sure. Okay. In California, we do have some extra like protections and things, and like, cool. That doesn't mean that I don't have friends in like other spaces. That doesn't mean that I don't care about the people who are in other disenfranchised areas that do not have the same access that I do. Like, I am a human and I care about this, and do some fucking research that isn't Fox News. I don't even remember the question now. I'm just mad. So
I,
uh
I think what you're saying is important, though, to kind of kick this off is whatever, whoever's coming at you or bringing into the conversation, why do you care? I think it needs to be like, hey, let's pause for a second. Why wouldn't I care? Like, I am not here just for myself. Like, everything I do, everything that I have that's available to me has a ripple effect on my bigger community and vice versa. If there is someone who doesn't have the same rights, who it doesn't feel safe, whether that's me or somebody else, like that affects everybody. And why wouldn't you want somebody to feel safe and be able to live a decent quality life? Like, I think we get so inundated with all of this propaganda and marketing and taglines and this and quips and whatever that was like, yo, let's bring this back. Why don't you care?
yeah. And yeah, like, yeah, why don't you care is a great one. And like, if we have access to like certain things because of where we live, then if we does that make us slightly more resourced in ways that we could help other places, right? So like, that is something that I would like to lean into, to be able to provide in the ways that I could, because I don't have to worry about things in such a drastic
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah. There's a piece of the like American dream that is so individualistic
Yeah, that's
that
the word.
people who even the remnants, even if you don't buy into it, even the remnants of that individualism is so integrated in how we think and we move around the world versus like
Mm-hmm.
the reality of how we move around the world.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't do anything that I do if it wasn't for you and the team and all of our professors and everybody I've ever worked with and any client who's ever walked in the door, even the ones who've been like, fuck you, you suck. Like, there's and my friends, and the fact that I can get my meals delivered because I don't have time to go grocery shopping. Like everything affects everything, and this these handful of things that I just mentioned are hundreds and thousands of people just so I can do my job.
Right.
Not like the 40 other parts of my life. Like everything and everybody affects each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the way that this is all structured. And additionally, like even further back than that, like humans as a species are not meant to be individualized like beings. We are community like pack based animals, right? Like that is the way that we are designed. And so to not take care of each other and to not do these things is gross. It's the
Clinically
best.
speaking, it's
That is,
gross.
that is the best that I could do.
Yeah.
It's yeah, like I get really not eloquent when I get upset. So that is it's gross and I hate it and it's stupid. Yeah.
So it's important to also think about hope, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
there's a bunch of disgusting white dudes that have a bunch of money and power right now who are throwing their little bits around. And just because they're allowed doesn't make it true. And so I think as we kind of end this, like thinking about hope and action, how do you stay out of the hopelessness and into a hope connected action space?
I think it goes back to what we mentioned earlier of like leaning into your community and like this choir idea. Like if I'm feeling really tired and like I need something, then I hope that you or someone else in this is like, I got this for a minute, go rest and come back when you're ready. And then it's like, okay, I'm back. All right, it's your turn to rest. Right. And just being able to kind of like feed that idea instead of holding the, I have to do everything by myself. I have to be in all the spaces. I have to do this or nothing's going to happen. Like, that isn't going to get you anywhere. And I feel like if we can find those spaces and take care of each other, then like it staves off a chunk of it.
Mm-hmm.
We can hold the hope for each other.
Yeah. One of one of the things that has come out of this so far, in line with what you're talking about, is after the election, a bunch of queer producers in LA have come together to start doing more community building and activism and community healing, and putting on events. So it's turned into the LA Queer Events Coalition, um, and we will have our first town hall on the 25th, which will be after this airs, but the second one will be in the end of April, at the 100-day mark of Trump's presidency, for exactly this reason, for people who can volunteer and be of support to be able to do that, for people who need support can come and get it, but really just to be in connection with each other and make plans for the next activist steps.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened in the 2 months from the election to now. Like, there's a lot that can happen, and we can make big moves to make changes.
Yeah.
What keeps you hopeful?
My community, the community that I have at my studio, my dance studio, like we are a bunch of people who are coming together to heal, but knowing that all of them are activists in their own way. Like we can still share space and process things on a level and find laughter and play together is what keeps me hopeful.
Yeah.
What about you?
Um, the fact that I'm staring at the dog completely passed out and happy, and the fact that this sweet little being doesn't have to deal with it keeps me hopeful. Uh, that not every creature is suffering. And same, like the amount of art that can come out of this, the amount of connection that can come out of this, the amount of growth for people who would otherwise be stuck or complacent can we've seen it happen and continue to happen can really make a shift and be like, wait a minute, this is not okay. I love watching that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Watching our colleagues be empowered and grow and really be find their voice in these spaces is really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, there's there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity in resilience, and like I think resilience is can be overrated and like, oh, I got to keep barreling through. But when you talk about resilience from a community standpoint, so much of it is from a love and connection space.
Yes. I feel like there's a difference between resilience and endurance.
Say more.
Well, like, if endurance is kind of the idea of like you're just gonna push through being uncomfortable and you're gonna just do the thing and like it doesn't matter and you're gonna like push yourself until you can't anymore, versus resiliency is like figuring out how to resource yourself enough to keep going in ways that feel meaningful.
Mm-hmm. And not the bare minimum. Not like, okay, I got my 15-minute nap. I'm going to go march for another 4 million hours.
Yeah, that still leans on heavily on the endurance piece. Like, are you
Mm-hmm.
actually rested for that? Like, does your
Mm-hmm.
body can your body handle that?
Yeah, you're not filling yourself up a little bit to go back to empty. You're filling yourself up as much as humanly possible and then giving a little bit and then filling yourself back up. What can people do next? What are your next steps?
I don't know. In life, in politics, in
in what we're talking about, what are
yeah.
if people are stuck and feeling hopeless, what are 2 things that they can go do right now?
I say go figure out what it is that's really important to you. Like, what is the thing that is really calling to you to like be like, that's like all of this is important, but like that's the thing that's calling me, and figuring out like the community or organization or whatever that is that resonates with you, and like how do you get involved, and noticing what your capacity is to do that, and making that plan, and also maybe like plan your self-care around that too. Like, this is how I notice that I'm getting burnt out, this is how I notice that I'm getting tired, and like what am I gonna do when I notice that, because it's really easy to get sucked up in the I'm gonna do all the things. And you're like, oh
Mm-hmm.
nope, familiar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. We've been talking a lot about it with clients as aftercare. Like if you're gonna go do the thing, have a plan already in place for how you're gonna take care of yourself after.
Aftercare is so important.
Yeah. Scream into a pillow. If you have any pent up energy, grab
Mm-hmm.
that pillow and scream into it.
Mm-hmm. I
I
also
love
like
that one.
throwing big heavy pillows
Yeah,
at the floor. They make a very
yeah,
satisfying sound. I tell that to my
yeah,
clients a lot. Throw some shit.
yeah. Uh, our team went to the Rage Room downtown
Yes.
LA 6 months ago. I think we will need to go do that again.
I think that's an every month thing at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was. I still am baffled. Like I was so zenned out after that. That was a really helpful thing.
The funny
And
thing is, I
like,
was completely overstimulated. It was too loud in there.
again, find what works for you.
Yep.
And get involved and be connected. Like find your community. I think connection is, and I think we will be harping on this a lot probably this year, is like
Yeah.
be with people. Um, Obvious ones that we're facilitating is the second Thursdays group. Jenny and Ernesto are very warm, safe spaces to spend time with. The town hall that we're doing every couple months, next one end of April, do that. The Human Rights Campaign is doing a lot of volunteer stuff. The LGBT Center is doing a lot of volunteer stuff. And volunteer doesn't have to be draining. You can go do simple things. You can fill out spreadsheets. You can send emails. You can pack a lunch. Everybody's got different stuff. And it's a really good way to be in community and connected with people. It's not just draining, it also can fill you up.
Yeah. And I think if you're listening from a place that is like in-person community is maybe less available, like online communities can still be just as fulfilling and meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Finding people to connect with outside of your immediate area if you are feeling very isolated.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's all I got today. We're one day in, and we will be back talking about this, I'm sure. Thank you so much for being down to talk about it a day after the inauguration. Thank you for everybody who's listening, as we are a little more fried than usual.
Yeah, if you made it to here, congratulations.
And of course, the best and my favorite way to rebel is to have queer joy. And so on that, here is your queer moment of joy.
Hi, can you tell us your name, pronouns, and where you work?
Yeah, my name is Jenny Galvez. I go by she, her, ella. I work at the community colleges in LA. I'm a faculty. I teach. Yeah.
And recent moment of queer joy?
Yeah. So a recent moment of queer joy would have been actually this past weekend. Cumbiaton, a big LA Latino queer space that does cumbia and DJ and music and brings community together. Had a pretty dope event this Saturday at the Fort. So a lot of dancing, joy, and just having a good time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. If you're in California and looking for a therapist, visit our website at openspacetherapycollective.com and book a free intro call with one of our therapists. If you're enjoying My Therapist Is Out, please rate, review, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Do you know somebody who could use a little extra dose of queer community? Send them one of your favorite episodes of My Therapist Is Out and help our collective grow one listen at a time. My Therapist Is Out is an open space therapy collective podcast, and our podcast editing is done by Rachel Peltzer and Smash and Grab Studio. We'd love to hear from you about today's topic, so email us at info@openspacetherapycollective.com. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Open Space Therapy Collective. Thanks for listening.